All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Thank you for being here. Today we are doing the Book Troop live show for How to Survive a Horror Story. Woo, look at that. Does yours have the sprayed edges too? These sprayed edges are so sick.
Yeah.
Like I really like that. And thank you so much for joining us today for our September live show. I'm joined by two booktube friends. I'm joined by Ashely from Ashley's Little Library and Ali from All I Do Is Read. Both of you have been on the Book Troop at least once before. I think Ashley's been on like several times now. So thank you for gracing us with your presence again. I appreciate it. And if you don't mind, would you want to take a second to like introduce yourselves? I know you've both been on here before, but maybe if you just want to say like what you typically read and like what kind of videos you make on your channel and things like that. I have both of their channels linked down below, by the way, if you want to go and check them out. But Ashly, why don't you kick us off?
Hey everyone, I'm Ashly. My channel is Ashley's Little Library, and I mostly read mystery, thriller, horror books, but I branch out a little bit, read a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of romance, a little bit of lit fic to mix it up, palate cleanser every now and then. And video stuff, I like vlogs. I've been doing monthly TBRs for the first time this year, forcing myself each month to do that. And I have a little TBR jar, it's little ghosts. That's been fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, all the normal stuff.
Love it.
I'm Ali. I'm sorry, I got nervous for a second. My channel's name is All I Do. Oh my God, what's my channel name? All I Do Is Read. I do a lot of vlogs, mostly vlogs, I would say. And this month I'm like been uploading a video every other day, and tomorrow's my final video of the month. So, and it's going to be like a spoiler-filled video.
Oh, so perfect.
It's going to be a long one though. I'm scared. And I mostly read pretty much as I can get. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not specific to any genre. I think I read the least amount of thrillers, mysteries, which is interesting. But maybe the most amount of fantasy and lit fic. And I look for romance in every single genre. So
same, there's that. Be honest. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much to everybody for joining. I see so many people that are like, oh yeah, I know Ashly and Ali. So that's great. Love that. But thank you so much for joining us on this lovely Sunday morning. I appreciate you all. So I would love to know, for anybody who is here that like has read the book, maybe you can put a little maybe just like a red heart emoji in the chat if you are here because you have read it. And maybe if you like DNF'd it or if you haven't read it yet, maybe you can do like a black heart emoji in the chat just so I can get a visual. The beginning of this live show will be totally spoiler free, so you can feel free to stick around for a little bit if you haven't read it and you just want to hear, you know, some general thoughts. And we will let you know before jumping into spoilers. While they're doing that, would one of you feel comfortable pitching like a non-spoilery synopsis? Or if nobody wants to do it, I can do it. But
not it.
I can try.
Thank you.
This, I will say, I think the genre would be an interesting thing to talk about because I don't totally know. I guess I'm calling it like a horror book mostly, but also kind of like a thriller. That follows, there's this famous horror author, Mortimer Queen, who dies. And after he dies, he invites several different writers to come to his estate, and they all think they're coming there for the reading of the will and that they're going to inherit something from his estate. But once they get there, they learn that there's actually some games and riddles in store for them, and they have challenges that they have to do to move through the house, and the consequences of not completing them are very bad.
Very bad.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Perfect. Well, thank you. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I read and thought this seems slightly Christie-esque. Yeah, so perfect. Well, thank you so much for that. Let me see. Let's just go ahead and jump right into ratings actually before we get into some of the bulk of the questions, just because I feel like that'll set the tone, because I feel like whenever we start to talk about things, I feel like we start to get a vibe for like how we felt about it. So I'd rather just get that out of the way first. So we're going to be revealing our ratings for the book. While we're doing that, if you want to go ahead and put in the chat if you did read this book, if you want to let us know what you gave this book out of 5 stars. And so Ali, why don't you go first, and you can just let us know your rating and then like a brief non-spoilery why you rated the book. That.
All right. Well, I'm a certified hater. I give this 2 stars. But I'm so curious why, like, if anyone gave it, I see someone gave it 4 stars. I need to know. I need to know why. So curious. But I think I really liked the beginning. And then as it went on, it felt repetitive and formulaic. I'm going to say that probably 20 times in this live show. And I think I was just very frustrated and kind of tired by the end. And then I was just like, okay. So those are kind of my feelings. And we'll get more into it with spoilers, I think.
Okay. All right.
I have the exact same opinion. I also am giving it a 2. And I also use the words formulaic and repetitive in my little notes of it too. Yeah.
Well, damn. Okay.
Gabby, did you get this 5 stars?
I give it 5. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm also giving this around like 2.5 stars. I was kind of torn between, like, for most of the book, I felt like it was around like a 3-star for me. But then towards the ending, especially like the last like 2-ish chapters, I was like, ooh, and then it like, made me drop my rating to like a 2.5, maybe 2. I could be talked down. I could. I don't really feel that passionately about this, so I feel like I could be talked down or up either way. But since we have certified haters on this live show, I feel the same where this book was just very formulaic. It feels like something I've read before. I kind of saw where it was going right from the start. As soon as something happens, I was like, I clocked that immediately. And yeah, it was just okay. It was just okay. I think for me personally, I'm a little bit burnt out on the Agatha Christie-esque type of, people getting picked off one by one and you're trying to figure out who is responsible kind of a book. And I guess one of the first questions I had for this live show is like, is that something you typically enjoy in books? Because usually I ask like, oh, have you read any of this author's books before? Like that's usually my opening question, but this is actually a debut. So this is this author's very first book. Yeah. So instead I thought I would ask like, is this style of story something that you typically enjoy? Or, with like the Agatha Christie people getting picked off, like, is that something you usually like? Or are you also kind of like meh on it?
I'm curious about Ashley's opinion because I'm sure you've read more than I have.
I do read this a lot. And I like this. My favorite kinds of things in thrillers, I like when writers are involved. I like survival elements, and like the one by one inherently is like a survival story, a type of survival story. Because I read so many, I want them to do something different. And that's part of also why I didn't love this, because it didn't feel like it did anything different. But also knowing it's her debut, I think this is fine for a debut. Like she has something she likes. She wanted to take a spin on it. And it did the thing. But if you've read so many of these or books sort of like this with different elements, it does sort of feel like you know where it's going to go. You know what plot beats it's going to hit. Especially the way it sets up the story after the first, couple of rounds. You're like, okay, I see what's happening now for every round, and then you just have to get through it.
Yeah. I tend to avoid that trope just because I've seen it in movies. I don't read too many mysteries, as I've said. But then I have gotten an exception before. I think both of you might not have liked this book, but I read Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney, and I actually had so much fun with that book.
I love Daisy Darker.
And I think maybe what it is it depends on like how the characters are connected for me. So if it's in a family and you're getting all the drama, I'm in it. And like I feel like the stakes are higher because like if someone in their family dies, that's like a harder thing than if some rando dies. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that, I think.
Yeah, I think for me too, it was that this book was a little bit like, because like Ashley was saying, like genre wise, it's kind of hard to like pitch this because it's like, is it a horror book? I don't really know. Like it does feel like mystery, I guess, as you're going through it because you're trying to figure out like what is actually happening at this house and like who's all behind it and that kind of a thing. But it's also like horror because there's like horrific things, I guess, happening. But genre wise, I think this was a little bit hard to figure out. But then also like the writing style specifically, I think is something that like I can see why other people would love this. It just wasn't really my thing because I feel like for me the writing in this felt a little bit like silly, goofy horror instead of like scary, creepy, like actually intense horror, because it kind of felt a little like, I don't know, like campy. I don't know if that's like the right word to use for this, but it kind of felt more like silly, lighthearted, fun kind of horror. And I just don't always love that kind of horror. Like it kind of reminded me of like How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix or something, or like The September House, where it's like silly, goofy vibes, and were those the same vibes that you guys were getting? Or
I feel like it should have leaned even further into the goofy,
yeah,
or even further into the dark, and it was kind of like in the middle.
That's so true. It's like it was not really either or that strongly.
it felt like it wanted to be camp, but it didn't fully commit to the camp. So then, like, are you taking it seriously? Or are you not? And I could tell you weren't taking it seriously, but you didn't take it not seriously enough.
Yeah.
But I agree that I think the author, like, I could tell that the author was excited. I feel like I could feel that through the story. So that is cool.
I think that's a good point, Kendall. Like, a horror for people that don't normally read horror. Like, I feel like this would be a good recommendation for somebody that reads like maybe a lot of mysteries and is like wanting something that leans a little bit more horror, perhaps. But yeah, and that's why I don't know if campy is the right word to use for this, because it's not exactly campy, but it's like leaning more in that direction, I think.
It's got a flavor of camp.
Yeah, it's got a flavor. It's camp flavored. Amazing. Yeah, it was Clue inspired. That would make sense. And then one of the questions I wanted to ask before we jump into spoilers is, did you like following from the point of view of so many characters in this book? Because, I mean, just to give you a rundown of some of the characters in here, I mean, we have the guy Mortimer Queen, who was the famous author. Also, did you guys pick up on the like Queen King thing? The way he was so Stephen King, like.
Oh, I don't know anything about Mr. King.
I'm like, his last name is Queen. I was like, okay, make it more obvious, like Stephen King. Like,
I didn't clock that. Yeah.
But they're like, oh, he's this super famous horror author who like had 1 million successful books, and he was just so big, and like people were moving their dates because they didn't want to publish on the same day as him. And I'm like, it's literally Stephen King. Like, okay. So I thought that was kind of a funny play on a character name, but so yeah, we have our main dude. That's like the manor. He owns this manor that they're all going to. And then we have our main protagonist girl, Melanie Brown. She's the only one of these authors who has never published a book. Like she's a writer, but she's never published her own book. And then we have Scott, who is another author, and he's like probably the most famous of the bunch that are going, because he's had his books like adapted into films, and he's kind of a celebrity, and he thinks that everybody like knows him. We have Crystal, who she's like really good friends with the author, and she writes erotic horror. And then we have this other woman, Winnie, who's a little bit older. She was like one of Queen's neighbors. And then we have this guy, Buck, who is the author's publishing assistant. And then we have Chester, who's a very polarizing author. They think he's like very creepy and weird, and he's like involved in a lawsuit right now. And then we have P.D. Marsh, who is a one-book wonder. He hasn't published anything in years. And yeah, those are the bunch. Those are our 7 characters. And if you were wondering, we do get every single character perspective in this book. So how did you feel about the characters in general? And did you like reading from all the perspectives, or would you have preferred if it was more like honed in just to like a few different perspectives? Like, how did you feel about that?
I loved going to I like love perspective in a book, especially when you don't just see one person's perspective and then their perspective, but like other people observing everyone else, because you can kind of see how everyone kind of sees people just even a tiny bit different. So I love that. Like Scott seems like just a golden boy douche, but he's like has crippling insecurity, and it was kind of, well, not funny, that's kind of rude to say, but it was interesting seeing those layers. And I liked how they did a lot of that kind of perspective work within the characters before they got into the rooms. And I think that's why I like the beginning so much, and the point of views really help with that for me.
Nice.
I felt a little opposite. I like multiple POVs, but I didn't feel like they were purposeful enough to see every single POV the way they were written. And I would have preferred just picking one character POV, like Melanie's, and then, you know, being as confused as she is, because she's one of the more confused people in going through the experience, or just telling it in third person, I thought would have been fine. It's sort of written in a third person removed kind of way. Anyway, it goes to each character perspective.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I kind of wish it was like honed in just a little bit, because I feel like I was getting a little bit overwhelmed by like the amount of characters. I was like taking notes. I was like, oh my God, who's who? Like trying to keep track of everything. And so I don't think it was like that great that we had 7 different like perspectives that we were following. I think it was a little bit much for me. But I also think like Melanie, for me as a character, she was a little bit too boring. Like if it was only from her perspective, I feel like it would have gotten a little bit boring. But I do wish it was maybe only like Melanie, maybe Scott, and then maybe like one other person. Like I don't think we needed like everybody. But I do think Scott was like one of the more interesting people to read about, just because he was so like douchey and like entitled, and like I feel like those characters are always more fun to read about than like the boring ones, like Melanie, that just doesn't really, she's just kind of like, oh my God, silly me, like I've never been published, like what am I doing here? Like she's very like giving the chosen one vibes, I guess. But
I think like the POV too, though, the downside, like as the book went on, was that it showed that some characters would reveal through their inner monologues, I suppose, like the reasoning And then other characters, it was like selectively shown to us and revealed to us, and that is annoying. It's like, well, why do some characters tell us what's up right away and then the others wait till the end of the book? I don't know.
Yeah.
That was kind of annoying.
No, I totally agree with that. I also think too, like, I think part of my issue with getting so many character perspectives is that they all started to kind of like read the same. Like, I feel like there was only a few that like really stood out to me as like different voices, and then the rest of them just all kind of like blended together. And I was like those last like 3 guys that was like Buck, Chester, Petey. I was like, I don't know, like they're all the same man to me. Okay, anyways, so let's go ahead and jump into some spoilery thoughts because we've been here for about 15 minutes and I want to get a chance to talk about some spoilery things within the story. So if you made it this far, thank you for joining us. We will be jumping into spoilers from this point forward. One of the first questions I had is, did you like, because in this book there's a lot of like short stories that are kind of like in between the stories, so I guess my question was, how did you feel about the short stories within the story? Like, did you enjoy those aspects of it? And like, or do you usually like stories within a story? And like, how did you feel about those parts in general?
I just feel like the more I talk about this book, the bigger a hater I'm going to. I can really dig in on this. I'm like, it's a debut and they tried their best and like, it's fine. Everything was fine first read, but I gave it a 2, so I'm going to dig a little bit. No, I hated the short story. I guess by the end, now that we're in the spoiler section, I'll talk about it more too, but the purpose of them all through the end is to have this ambiguous unreliability, like who's telling the truth, all of these people, or was Mortimer, like were all these people actually bad people who did all these bad things, or were they people and then these bad things happened? He kind of like played the victim and then wrote these short stories to make it look like they were even worse than they totally were. So
yeah,
in the beginning I was like, these are just so repetitive, like we're just hearing the explanation of what we already found out through the riddle. Now I have to read a 10-page short story that's not even like written in a different style or better or interesting in any way. So I was very tired of them by the end of the book. It's like just another piece that felt like it's just doing the same thing over and over to the same point by the end.
I was so excited when I saw that we're going to have that because I do enjoy books, and I thought it was going to be like excerpts from the author's books, and that was going to reveal to us like some sort of secret or like that they stole something from Mr. Queen, whatever. But then when I saw that it was like an explanation, at first I was really annoyed. It's like, I hate being over-explained something. Yeah. And then when we found out that like he was rewriting it, I was like, okay, that's a little bit more interesting, but also like, who cares? Sorry. Yeah. But then it's like, those were her short stories that she wrote. Like that was her inserting it. And then it's like,
why she's never been published.
Well, I wasn't sure.
And that's what I'm saying.
I wasn't sure if it was her stories or if it was what he wrote, because it says from the desk of Mortimer Queen. And whenever she gets to the end in that cabin, he's like, I hope these people didn't fool you. And if they did, like check under the floorboards. And she finds all the materials that show how they were bad people. So I was wondering if those were like stories he wrote already about that she found. And then later she goes and publishes 6 short stories, which is
I know.
I just remember her talking about how she was writing and that she said that she wrote them. So that's why I assumed that they were like hers. But I don't know. I think that is part of the ambiguity for sure. But then when she had, if those were her stories though, and she got all that acclaim at the end, it's like,
lame.
What? Because it's only interesting if you know about the house and like the maybe they're bad, maybe they're good. Also, did she change the names? I don't know.
Well, and like some of the stories were literally just like, oh, this guy's a douchebag to this girl on the plane. Okay, he's a terrible person. Next. Like, it was just like some of the short stories were so pointless. Like, and like Ashely was saying, it's like we found out about this person and their story and whatever, and then the next thing would be the short story. Like, I noticed it especially when it was the girl, what's her name, Crystal, like the one that was like having an affair with him or whatever, and the one when you're reading about how like, she like accidentally killed his wife or like unintentionally killed his wife, and you learn all about that, and then the next thing is the short story of like reading that exact thing. It just felt so repetitive with some of the short stories. I was like, is this necessary? And like
I do think it was interesting because we got their POVs. I feel like we definitely like found out their voices though, and they were very different from like the people that were described in the short stories. So I thought that part was kind of cool, but like they went into so much detail.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. I know. I think something that I liked about this within the writing, and I'll ask you both, like, what's something that you enjoyed about it after, since we have probably very little things to pull from here. But I think one of the things that I did really enjoy, especially towards the beginning of this book, was the aspect of like, because like I do love when writers are included in books, like as characters. Like I love following writers, and so I kind of loved the conversation when they were like, "Oh, what would you do in this situation? Like if it was your horror story, then like what would you do next?" And they were kind of like trying to plot it out in their heads. Like I thought that was really fun, just because it was very like meta in a way, because they were horror authors themselves. But I also really liked when they were talking about like what is it that makes a good horror story, and when they were saying like what makes a good horror story, a gory death, and they're like, no, what's important is the journey making that scary. And they said, I disagree. I find that the true root of horror is in its characters. They should be the scariest part of a book because the human mind is the most scariest thing in existence. And I was like, that's a lot of foreshadowing there, I think, for things that are going to be happening at the end. But I do love discussions like that when it comes to like writers and books, and like trying to figure out, like getting in the head of an author and like trying to see like what they would do in certain situations with writing. Like I thought that was kind of fun. So I did enjoy that about this. But what was something that you enjoyed about it?
Well, I have to start with the dislike. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
But when they talked about, they made like that list. A personal pet peeve in every single type of book is a fucking list. I hate a list so badly. And so they kept referencing it too. I thought they would reference it much more, and I was gonna like throw the book. But when they were like, what shouldn't we do? And it was like the most basic ass shit. It was like, don't be stupid. Oh, okay. Write that down. And then of course they continued to be stupid. But anyway, things I liked. Hold on, I wrote these down. I really liked the beginning, like I said, seeing everyone. I feel like the setting was most, like the atmosphere was the best in the first part, because we started getting like description of the house, and maybe I could just like understand it more, so I liked it more. But it seemed like cool, all the tiny little details with like all the clocks and the paintings, and seeing everyone there. I also liked, I can't read my handwriting. I love in a horror or a thriller if it turns fantastical. So I think that's what I was most excited about in here. And then like when I saw the teeth, I was like, okay, we're actually gonna get it. So I liked how that sort of was. That's also a dislike as well, but we'll get into it. And then I think that's it.
All right. Also, that's a very interesting thought. I like that. I like that idea.
Yes.
Because I do think if the house was like a character, and it's because it kind of was, but I feel like it was lacking there, and I think that would have made it more interesting.
I saw someone say this in the chat. I was also going to say my favorite thing is the sprayed edges about that. But on the house POV too, I thought Gio was an interesting character. And that's you don't get a POV from, and that could have been cool to see something with her. But she was intriguing, and the other like servants that were bringing the food out, and they had like these black soulless eyes or whatever. Like that was nice and creepy in the beginning. And I like the idea of riddles and games in general. Again, like I just wish it would have done something different with it over time. It felt like this book set itself up, and then it was like, great, now we're going to play out every single way that you think it's going to.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, yeah, what everybody was saying in the chat is so interesting about the idea of like getting a perspective of the house, and how it was like the house was like its own character, but it would have been more impactful, I think, if we actually got the perspective of the house. And same with like Gia's character. Gia's character was interesting because at times I was like, is she like a ghost? Like, why does she just keep like popping up randomly? And same with, that whole thing with Winnie ending up in the bathtub. That was so random.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why they didn't just kill her off.
Yeah, it was like, she's like,
because what was the purpose after?
Yeah, I don't know. She was like, the house told me to take a bath. Like, okay.
It was unexpected, I'll give it that. But like, for what purpose? Because then she ended up dying like 2 doors down.
Yeah, that was meaningless. Okay, and then to kind of jump into some things about the ending of this book, I wanted to ask, how did you feel about the ending? Because for me, the ending is really where this kind of fell apart for me, because so we find out ramping up towards the end that like I think the last 2 that are alive is Melanie and Buck, I think, are the last two. And then they're like, oh, there's only going to be one survivor or whatever. And then Melanie says something along the lines of like, oh, it feels like something's chipping away at my brain and like memories are like flooding back or something. I don't know what was going on there, but then we find out in a flashback that like she had actually met this author Queen dude like months ago, and then he had said like she went to like a book signing for her sister, like to get one of his books signed by him, and then he just kind of like immediately takes an interest in her and is like, oh my god, like let me see what you've written so far, which like, okay, when has that happened ever for somebody as big as like Stephen King? Like, okay, sure, like whatever. And so then he's like reading her stuff and he's like, this is no good, this is no good. And he's like, if you want to write, you need to have inspiration. And he basically like offers her this opportunity to come here to like, I don't know, witness all of these people get brutally murdered so that she has something to write about. Like,
and she's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but like that's the ending that we went with in this. And so then she, you know, writes this like super successful 6 short stories, which I don't know, it was either the ones that we read or maybe it wasn't, I don't know, but she becomes this like famous author at the end. And I think at the very end of the book, it's like she looks out into the crowd and then she sees like the ghosts of like all 6 of them, and she's like, she'd kill for this. And that's
but she didn't. I mean,
yeah, but she didn't.
She did once.
Yeah. Crystal.
So how did you feel about the ending? Did you find it to be predictable? Like, where did you think it was going? What did you want to see happen? Just general thoughts.
I wanted her to go full on evil, and like they made it sound like she did, but she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. I wanted her to like. I secretly think that like subconsciously even she did pick out a treat with like nuts in it to kill off what's his face.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's a theory I have. Obviously, she brought him back to life, but I wanted her to absolutely go apeshit. I think that would have made it better for me. But why were the ghosts haunting her? Like, she's not responsible for all of them. It sounds like she had a head injury, so that's why she didn't remember when she got to the house, which is very convenient, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then she said, oh, what did she say at the end? It didn't even make sense. She said to them to make them disappear, I'm not going anywhere. Okay, you asked. You asked, babe. I don't know. So, I mean, I did like that there was a time jump. But I don't know. It just seemed a little bit like, let's finish this up, you know? That's what it felt like to me. And I started to get frustrated mostly with the middle. So by then I was completely clocked out, just because it felt so like fillery and formulaic. Word of the day. But that ending, it almost made it more funny because I was like, okay, I can laugh about this now.
Yeah, this is my least favorite thing in a thriller is the memory loss thing, where conveniently she agrees to do all this, hits her head, doesn't remember any of it. This whole time she's like, why am I here? I don't understand. Like, what connection did I have? Did I piss him off somehow? How am I a part of this? She survives, gets everything, and then miraculously falls and hits her head again, and that brings the memories back. And it just feels so pointless and not a very strong character arc, because her development is like, I didn't remember anything, and then suddenly I did.
And she doesn't even stick up to her mom. She just starts getting along with her mom.
Yeah, and it's like, why did we get all that information about?
I want the house to eat the mom for sure.
By the end, when she's like in the cabin and she decides to keep Buck down in the basement, like, yeah, go full evil, go crazy. Like, your memories are back. Remember that you wanted to be involved in this and orchestrate in this, and like you helped pick some of the people too, or something, you know?
Yeah, like if she had been like, well, what about this? What about this? That would have been cool. But also, why did she say yes in the first place? I know she was drunk, but I've been drunk and I've never agreed to that.
Yeah, that's so like that's like one of my biggest points is like, why would he take such an interest in her? Like, why did he think that she was like the one who was gonna like write this masterpiece? Like, she was just some rando at a book signing, and she admitted to him that she had never read his books. Like, is it one of those things where he's like, oh my god, she's special because everybody's a fan of me except for her? Like,
yeah,
like, what is it?
I thought there was going to be a theory. I felt like they teased it for a second to like put us off the track that it was going to be like his daughter. And I was like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. But also it would make sense.
Well, I would have preferred a stronger reason. Like if he had actually had a solid reason, like, oh my god, you were my long lost, whatever the fuck. Like I would have bought that more than just like picking her out of a lineup at a book signing. You know, like it just didn't make any sense to me. And even if she did like look like his wife or whatever, I don't know. Like I just don't fully buy that. And for me,
at least if her writing would have been good, then he would have been like, oh, you're this undiscovered prodigy. But like, he's
Yeah,
like, no,
he
your
kept saying
writing's
your writing's
terrible.
not even good.
And like, he's just like, you need experience. Like, what?
Yeah. Like, that's gonna improve her writing for sure. Like witnessing murders. Anyway.
That is
But
so
yeah,
funny.
I thought Melanie, at least for me from the beginning, she was like the most obvious. Like to me, it was so obvious that she was like involved because she was the only one out of all the authors who had never been published. So I was like, then what the fuck are you doing here? Like, you know, like it was just very obvious that she was like the chosen one. So I immediately kind of had my eye on her, and like she was the only character that got really fleshed out. Like we got her mom's name and her sister's name and some of her backstory. So I was like, okay, there's very clearly like something more with this girl. Like it just, the setup was just way too obvious for me. But then also, yeah, like it really bothered me how like Melanie just conveniently like lost her memories about like all that, because I hate, like there's nothing more I hate than when a character in the beginning is like lying to us directly as the reader, being like, why would Queen want me there? I've never met this man in my life. And that was just like a straight up lie. Like, and I know it's like maybe she didn't remember herself, but it's like it was just so frustrating for me. Like I don't like that at all in thrillers.
Well, see, every now and then she would say like, oh, I remember talking to him in a bar. It's like, okay, please tell us more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was someone he could mold into his image, and he needed someone to care for the house. I mean, I guess.
But like,
still-
why? What about her? Just from her saying that she's never read his books.
Yeah.
I guess it's giving like not desperate energy, but I'm sure he could have just walked out on the street and be like, hey, do you know who I am? Someone would be like, no. He's like, come here, babe.
Yeah, like if they would have known each other for more than a couple hours, like maybe spent a week together, but then that makes it hard to lose all the memory of that.
I had a theory.
So.
At the beginning, I was like, what if, because she's unpublished, she wrote like fan fiction and he read it and he stole all her ideas? That was going to be like the reason why I thought she was there. And he was like apologizing to her while everyone else had to apologize to him.
See, that's so interesting, because I feel like there needed to be more like layers to the story, right? Because it's like the concept was there, but like I think that's way more interesting, especially since so much of the story revolved around like people stealing stories from one another. I think that would have been like the ultimate like interesting twist at the end if they had brought that back as like he took something from her.
I'm also confused about a couple things at the end. And I don't know if I just like didn't read it correctly, but there's like this reveal that Winnie, she like wrote this gossip column about like Crystal and him having an affair, but no one in the house knew that they were having an affair. So was that, I'm just like, I don't know. And then I guess she wrote a gossip column that he hurt his wife, but like when they all got to the house, no one mentioned that. So I find that really strange. Like, why would, I don't know, it felt convoluted. Like they just put that in at the end as like a little twist. It's like, why wouldn't one of them mention, or did they mention it? Did I just miss that? I don't know.
Crystal knew, but I think she was the only one. But I feel like the whole, what the book was trying to do was end on this note, like whose story do you believe? And everyone can be a villain, and whose story is the most true. But so that's where I was left on the end of like, who was right? Were these people actually bad and they did these bad things, and their truth is, or the truth is more close to the stories Mortimer / Melanie, whoever wrote them, or is the truth more of like what they're thinking in their internal POVs? And I was inclined to lean to think that their internal POVs were more correct.
Yeah,
and maybe there was like grains of truth in the stories that were written about them that made them look worse. Like maybe she did actually know about the affair, or that he was hurting his wife and pitched some of that, but then, you know, all the rest wasn't as intense. Or like Scott's story, like he did end up getting in a bar fight that night, but it wasn't the same as what was written in the story that was like really exemplified, and saying that he like threatened the PR guy to not promote Mortimer's book. And it's like, well, did that happen, or did he just like give the guy a concussion and then he couldn't promote?
And then like in the basement with that tape, I think that was the most like damning evidence. Did they just get that from the house, or because Buck did say he said those things, it just meant something different to him? But also like how convenient that that was recorded. Like what? Who did that? I don't know.
Yeah, because things were just exaggerated in the stories, right? But they were like, there was elements of truth in all of them, I think.
So then like, did Queen truly believe this? Is that like how twisted his head was? Or did he just think this would be entertaining?
I don't know.
It seems like he at least didn't like them for the things they did to him, for him to feed them to the house.
True. Although it seems like he's been doing it for like many, many years. Although I wonder who had the house before him. I don't know.
Also, like, what's the consequence of the house not being fed? You know, I
Says
was
it
wondering that.
starves.
Yeah, okay. Let's stop
Yeah.
killing
Exactly. Like poor Gia. She needs to eat. She's hungry.
Yeah. That's what I mean. We needed more explanation for like how the house even works, you know, because I feel like the house was such a cool aspect of the story, and I feel like we didn't even really get a lot of it, you know? Like I expected more scenes of like the house like doing things instead of just like I
I
don't
like
know.
the
I feel
part
like
where it literally like dragged Pete in, like munched on him. It literally said it
yeah.
chewed him up. And I thought we were gonna get more of that. But
Yeah.
more so it was like a theatrical sorry, I can't say that word. A theatrical event that like the
Mhm.
author had previously, they've like rehearsed it
Mm.
almost. It just feels kind of like the house didn't really get to eat
Mm.
fully, in my
Mhm.
opinion. And I really wish they went there. Or like maybe the author, they're all authors, Mr. Queen, like had set this all up, but even then the house is trying to like chew little bits off of them and like surprise drag them into a room that's
Yeah.
not a part of his story. I
Yeah.
think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
that's what I mean about, like, the game changing midway through is what we needed to make it different. Some like a new element, an unexpected piece, like the house betraying the author, you know?
That would have
Mhm.
been so cool.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I agree. I also really agree with this when like you hate when when we know stuff before the characters and then you're just kind of waiting for them to figure it out. I feel like this book kind of had that as well, and same with like the alluding to something. That was also kind of driving me crazy in the writing. Um anyway, let me see. So I guess one of my final questions leading up is will you read more from this author in the future, or do you think that this author is just like not the author for you?
I mean, I'm adventurous, so I'll jump in again, but I might wait for a couple reviews.
Mhm.
But I
They say
like
they're doing a slasher next. I was looking back, there's, like, the Q&A at the end, and what is it
Oh.
you're working on next? And it says a slasher novel. All I can say is if someone knocks at the door, don't answer it.
Vampire Diaries.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
you know what?
intrigued.
Maybe it is vampires.
I will read it if it's vampires.
It's
I
a
don't even care if it
Oh,
sucks.
shit. That would be pretty sick, actually. Yeah, I feel like I'd be a little nervous to read from this author again just because the writing in particular, since it feels like somewhere in between campy and serious, like I don't know if this is the kind of writing for me, but if she does vampires, then like my hands are tied. I'm reading it.
It's happening.
It kind of reminds me of the only Darcy Coates book I've ever read is the one we read for the book troupe
Mhm.
a couple years ago. I don't even remember which one that was, The Haunting of something. And it
Is-
kind of reminds me of that style of writing.
Oh, the Ashburn House. Yeah. Yeah, her writing does remind me of Darcy Coates. Yeah.
Did you
I can
guys
totally see
give that 2 stars too?
I gave it
Yeah.
1 star, I think.
Dear God.
I'm
I kind
not
of
a
want to read
big
it now.
Yeah. Well, I guess leading into that final question that I had was like, what book or movie or TV show would you compare this to? Because I have like a full list of, there's so many things that this reminded me of that I feel like this didn't do it as well. So I have other books that like I would recommend this instead. But I would love to know if you have any like books, movies, TV shows that have similar vibes or just stuff that you would compare if you enjoyed this one or didn't enjoy it.
I'm glad to hear that you have a lot because I have almost none. I don't know if I'm just having a brain fart or what. So that was kind of fun for me. Like this was something a little bit different for me, or it was like a bunch of little things from a bunch of things.
Mhm.
And the only thing that came to mind, this is so weird and random, was that episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where she's in her dorm room and every time she bangs her boyfriend, sorry, there's like vines and like the dorm is coming alive and turning into like a jungle. That's all I
Ooh.
was remembering. So I like it when like the setting becomes a character. And I need
Yeah.
recommendations. So if you all have that, give them to me.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if any of these are the setting becomes a character, but I think the closest comparison I had was You Are Fatally Invited by Andy Pliego.
Yes.
I enjoyed quite a bit. This is also writers at a house, death, riddles, games. And I think this one was much more successful and has a lot of similar things. And then, of course, I always recommend The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz when we're talking about authors. And this one goes wackadoodle, and I love wackadoodle. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it for that. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton, I think, is kind of similar. That one's like murder mystery and a person keeps reliving the murder over and over in different people's bodies. So it has like a fantastical element to it.
That's cool.
And Bodies, the movie. I was thinking of that too. And that one does a better job fully leaning camp.
Yes, I love that movie. Yes, I agree with the September House, mainly just in like vibes. I feel like it's similar in like writing style, it's similar. Kendall totally clocked it. I was gonna say Kill Creek. Oh my god, if you want something that's like actually scary and creepy, and it has 4 horror authors who are going to stay the night in a haunted house on Halloween night and live stream it. Dude, so much fun. Like one of my favorite horror books. I always recommend. It's a good time. And then for some reason, this also reminded me of quite a bit of With a Vengeance by Riley Sager, actually, because it felt very like similar in the sense that it's like Agatha Christie inspired, people getting picked off one by one kind of a thing. Like this one takes place on a train, obviously, but like we read this for the book troop, so like I couldn't help but notice that there was like so many similarities with this one. It also kind of reminded me of the book The Venue by TJ Payne. For some reason it kind of had like a similar, like it was almost like campy feeling, but like not quite. It was like somewhere in there. It kind of reminded me of that vibe. And I also recently just read a book called The Traitors. That was another story where like people are going to a castle and then people get picked off one by one kind of a thing. I feel like there's a lot of books that are very, because, you know, I don't know why Agatha Christie gets credited for this. I don't know if it's just because of And Then There Were None, but like apparently that style is just always credited to her. But that's interesting. Yeah, Kill Creek, Monster House, Escape Room, and Clue. Oh yeah, Ready or Not. I don't know slash tag, but that's a cool sounding one. Oh yeah, Dead of Winter. Yeah, Dead of Winter is another by Darcy Coates, and that's kind of one where like people are getting picked off one by one in the snow. That one was actually pretty fun. That was the only Darcy Coates that I've liked. But yeah,
Darcy's in the chat like
I know, Ali, I'm trying to like think of a book rec because of what you said about like the setting is a character.
I feel like I have some, but I can't think of anything on the top of my head. Never. So I don't know.
Kendall in the comments said Shirley Jackson does a really good job of making the house almost seem like its own character. And this book in the Goodreads blurb at least mentions we used to live in the castle. We always lived in the castle. Always lived in the castle.
That was a good book.
I love that book. That's one I still need to read. Yeah, and then what was I gonna say? Oh, there was this one I read earlier this summer that was like, it was called Girl in the Creek or something like that. That one was one where like the creek itself almost had like a perspective in the book, and that was like a really cool element to it. So that's one of the only ones I could think of off the top of my head. But anyway, so were there any like last burning things that you were like, I needed to talk about this in this live show that you didn't get a chance to say yet? Because if you have any thoughts, like now is the time to get it off your chest.
Oh wait, who was your fave character? Did we already say that? I can't remember.
Oh, favorite character?
I feel like Lester was interesting. He was a Gemini. I'm just gonna say that, a bad Gemini, and we know some of those. But I feel like he like when he started laughing, I would have done the same exact thing. Like if someone told me that this was gonna happen, I would have just started laughing. So I thought he was the most different from everyone else. I don't know, but I hated him. But he was fun to read, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if I had a favorite character, to be honest. I feel like out of the 7 authors that went to the house, I feel like Scott was like the most entertaining to read about for me, but I don't know if I would call him like a favorite character. But I think maybe my favorite character was actually like Mortimer Queen, just because he had like the most interesting lore, even though he was never really like on page very much. But like I think he was definitely the most interesting out of all the characters in the book for me. I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I think it was just Gia, and like when she would
manifest. I keep forgetting about her.
I was like, "Who are you? You freak? Are you alive? Are you dead? Are you the house? What is happening?"
When the spider leg poked out of her eyeball, I was like, "What?" That was like the scariest part of the book. Actually, I was like, "Okay, like, let's get more."
Is she a ghost? Like, what is she like? A physical representation of the house, like in human form?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Similar to that, I wanted to ask what everyone's favorite like scene or riddle. Like, because all the rooms were so different and the creepy things they had to go through.
Oh God,
they were so convoluted for someone.
Yeah, like they're all blending in my brain.
I'll start with my favorite. My favorite was the maze when Buck and Scott have to go through the maze, and there's that big deer at the end of it, and that was like the most creepy one to me. I thought
that deer scene, I was just like, what am I reading right now? I had to reread that like end of that chapter so many times because I was like, did he just get pierced in the chest by a deer?
And then he lived for like a bit after that.
And then he got stabbed. He had so many holes in him at the end of the story.
Yeah, I was so lost. I was like, is this for real or is this like a hallucination?
Yeah, I feel like that was my least favorite. I don't know why. Because I really like the goofiness of how convoluted some of these rooms were. I think the library scene might have been no, they had to like step on a tile, find a poem, get to the book, see the chapter, fix the clock, get the paper, fix the riddle. And still they were like, wait, it can't be Petey. He just died. Sometimes they were so dumb.
Yeah.
That was so annoying. And it's like, you're supposed to be smart authors.
It's like they forgot that people can lie.
Yeah.
Like, you forgot. Yeah, the acid, because that's one of my most irrational fears.
I was not expecting that. That was cool.
Yeah.
And like his toes just
He's like the bone sticking out the rest of the
and he's just walking like it's no big deal. That was crazy.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for joining me for this live show today. If you haven't yet heard, for the book troop in October, we're going to be reading 13 Months Haunted by Jimmy Giuliano. And this is from the same author as Dead 11. So I'm hoping that I end up loving this one. I don't know what to expect with like vibes with this one, because I'm hoping that it's not too like campy, silly, goofy like this one was. But I don't know. This one sounds like it's going to be very interesting. So that's going to be happening next in October. Did you want to promote any like upcoming things that you're working on your channels, or like things that you have coming up soon that you wanted to shout out?
Videos.
I have something exciting.
Oh, please. Yeah, Ali said she was going to be posting a video about this book soon, right?
Yeah, but it's going to be like, because I decided to do spoiler free. I don't do too many of those. And I turn it into a plot recap. So if you want every single effing detail in this book while I'm kind of being mean, might be funny. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
No, we'll definitely.
I have to edit it today. So yikes.
All right. Well, coming very soon. Tomorrow. Okay, well, perfect. And once again, thank you so much to Ashely and Ali for joining me today. Both of their channels are linked down below if you want to go check them out, show them some love. Thank you so much for reading with me this month and for joining me on this lovely Sunday. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.